And welcome to another episode of the Outdoor Giving Podcast. On this episode, we will be talking to Robbie. He is the creator of Blood Origins. If you don't follow them, you really should. They cover topics throughout the world, anything to do with hunting, raising awareness, all sorts of wonderful stuff. It's worth having a look on their Insta feed or their Facebook, or even just going to their main website. But we'll get on with the main podcast shortly, and we'll have a chat with Robbie. So it's August. Good grief. The year seems to have flown by absolutely rapidly. It means we've got 12 days before the glorious 12th and the start of flying game. That'll be duck, wildfowl, pheasants, partridge, you name it. It all is back in season. It only felt like yesterday that we were finishing off the pheasant and partridge days. So we've been adding a few more touches to the podcast. You can now see that if you log on to the Buzzsprout site, or actually I think it's on any of the feeds, you can now send us a text message. So you can click on the link and drop a message in there, and it's kind of a bit like fan mail. We'll be able to look at it. If we get some good points and things like that, we will have a little Q&A possibly at the end of each podcast, just recapping some of the questions that have been asked. So if you'd like to hear your question answered at the end of a podcast, send us a message via that format, and we'll do our best to answer it, and you'll get your answer on the next podcast. Again, if you like what you're listening to, and you can, please go and give us a review. Click that 5-star button and leave a little comment or something like that, either via the iTunes app or Spotify or whatever other streaming platform you listen to. All of those reviews help, and they keep us up in the chart so that more people can find the podcast. As well as that, if you share it, that would be really helpful. Anyway, let's get started and listen to my chat with Robbie. Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Giving Podcast. Today we have got Robbie, the creator of the Blood Origins podcast, on the line. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Yeah, the podcast is certainly one way to get our voice out there, but we've got lots and lots of other things tied to Blood Origins.
I was going to say, yeah, it's not just the podcast. Obviously, I found you because of the podcast and listening to some of the fantastic bits that you do. But yeah, there's a whole other backstory. We'll come to that in a second, because obviously one of my main questions that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast is, how did you get into sort of the hunting? Is it something that was in the family? Is it something that you've done for a long time? Was it something you've just discovered?
Yeah, I never hunted when I grew up, man. I grew up in a massive town in South Africa called Johannesburg, so 8.5 million people. And, it's almost like growing up in downtown London or downtown Los Angeles or whatever, right? If you're not exposed to hunting, you're not in the hunting world, you don't have friends that hunt, you're the kind of person that we're trying to speak to, which is, hold on, I got two little dogs with me right now.
I know, brother.
I was the kind of person that I wanted to speak to, like that I'm speaking to today, which is someone who's ambivalent to hunting, someone who doesn't really know anything about hunting. They may have a negative perception of hunting because of seeing X and Y on social media. But my family was steeped in hunting heritage. My grandfather was a huge hunter in Russia, in Germany. And then when he moved to Mozambique in 1954. So he lived the heyday of Africa for 20 years before revolution hit Mozambique in the middle of the 70s.
Yeah.
But all I got was stories. I got trophies on the wall. And the stories I got was in the written form, not in the oral form. Like my grandfather was sort of the old school archetype, right? Kids were to be seen, not heard.
Okay.
With my grandfather. And so, yeah, we never got regaled stories of like hippos crashing into boats and knocking them over whilst they were, 10 sheets to the wind going home one evening from duck hunting. I got all those in the written word, essentially.
Okay.
So I never grew up hunting. I was never in the hunting space, hunting industry space, until I had my boys. And I was living in America at the time. And I just started this idea that has now blossomed into Blood Origins.
Yeah, because your background is you were a lecturer, I believe, in biology or something along those lines, and then obviously you've moved on and pushed forward to this whole sort of conservation idea that you're getting out.
Yeah, so I have a PhD. I came to the States to do a PhD. I'm a wetland ecologist by training. I love swamps.
Okay.
And so really what I did was, once I've got my PhD, I was a professor at a university here in the States for 6 years in the wildlife fisheries department.
Right.
And that really led me, I've always had a conservation bend to me. I've always enjoyed conservation. I've always enjoyed wildlife conservation. So that's always been a thread within what I do, how I do it, regardless of whether it was in the university setting. In America, specifically in the Southeast, when you're hunting for white-tailed deer, if you get into the hunting white-tailed deer world, there's a lot of restoration, a lot of management, a lot of wildlife management that goes into that system.
Yeah.
And so, I helped friends with farms. I did a little bit of that work on the side. So really the whole wildlife conservation side has always been there. Even from a young age, I wasn't involved in hunting back in South Africa, but I was involved in game ranging. That was like my outlet. Every young boy in South Africa wants to be that Land Rover jockey and driving people around and showing them lions and elephants and stuff like that. And that's what I wanted to do when I did it. Again, I had no idea of the sort of hunting world and what it did for wildlife and what it did for habitat.
But South Africa would have been a completely different, obviously, the way the States works and the hunting works and everything and the conservation works out there. South Africa probably is miles apart from it, but very close to it in other ways as well.
Yeah, I would say, complete opposite ends of the spectrum, a public system versus a private system, right?
Yeah.
South Africa is more like Texas in the way that it's set up.
Yeah.
But arguably, North America and South Africa, the two greatest wildlife success stories on the planet today.
Absolutely.
With hunting embedded as a foundational element in it, if you didn't know.
Well, I've just managed to catch hold of a director called Tom, what's his name? Tom Opry, who's just
Tom
done
Opry. He just done a film. Yeah,
fantastic
Killing the
film.
Shepherd. Brilliant.
That's it. Yeah, no, absolutely. And he's just been to Scotland and he's just done his release of
The Last Keeper.
The Last Keeper.
Mm-hmm.
And again, chatting to him and talking about things there, it's one of those things. We're all in the same boat. We all want to keep what we do alive. Unfortunately, we're all under the scrutiny, exactly as you said, of everything else that's going on, social media and people that are out there that don't have an idea, but they've seen a picture of it, and it's always the worst thing, isn't it, that they grab hold of, and we're all murderers. That's what it is.
Yeah, unfortunately, we like every industry in this world have bad apples.
Yep.
And unfortunately, because of who we are and what we do, which is we kill animals, those bad apples tied in with killing things, it sort of puts our bad apples on steroids.
It does. Yeah.
And it's just something you can't avoid. You can't change them. And they give us, we put 5 steps in the positive direction, they'll remove 15 in a heartbeat.
And I think that's the biggest problem. And I think that's where I know I'm only a very small podcast. I have a listener base that is growing, but there's something like you guys you're right out there. You're on 400 odd podcasts now. It's phenomenal. Well, I was listening to one of yours the other day, the podcast where you were talking to the conservationist in Australia doing the
regenerative agriculture.
And it's just like, hang on a minute. that's so what Scotland needs. This whole thing about the deer damaging trees and everything like that. It was like that's all we need. And Tom and I were talking about this. So again, everything comes together for a whole reason. And listening to that podcast, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I think again we're all on the same boat, and Blood Origins has taken it upon themselves to sort of build this global community in which we can talk to people all over the world. We have people who engage us from all over the world in truly sort of just like, being able to speak to, what does your hunting system look like? What troubles are you having? What rhetoric challenges are you having? Oh, those rhetoric challenges are the same as what's happening in England, same as what's happening in California, same as what's happening in South Africa. Okay, we can all just start learning from this and growing our voice collectively.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think our biggest problem is it's those bad apples that really are that unfortunately.
Well, I'm sure you saw the guy who ran over a wolf with a snowmobile and taped up his mouth. Did you see that?
I haven't seen that. No.
Oh, thank the Lord you didn't see it.
No, is that's something obviously that's gone around social media in the States or something like that?
Oh, it got picked up and it's being used against us now. Like really used against us in terms of there's a big fight in Colorado right now about stopping the banning of trophy hunting of mountain lions. So, but number one, nobody trophy hunts mountain lions. So they're trying to ban the hunting of mountain lions, and there's a precedence happening here, because if it happens, then it's just going to knock on in other states.
This was one of your podcasts recently. You spoke about, well, it was Tom and I were talking about it as well. There's another one about the cruelty or harming of any animal, isn't it? Was the one that he spoke about, which is another bill that's trying to go through.
Well, there's one in Oregon. They failed twice already, and that's probably what Tom was talking about. It's called IP. I think it's IP 49 now, Initiative Petition 49. It used to be IP 13. Then it was IP 3. But they're trying to like outlaw it's everybody. So agriculture, fishing,
that's
everything
right,
under one umbrella. Like, for instance, artificial insemination is going to be classified as sex abuse on cows.
Right. It's just madness, absolute madness when you look at it that way. But the thing is, the farming industry have the power and the money behind them that they can overrule it, but it will drop down to the wild animals, which don't have anybody to protect them apart from us, the conservationists and the hunters. And therefore our voice won't get heard. It'll get written into statute law for the states, and all of a sudden that bans that type of hunting, doesn't it? Straight away.
Yeah, and that's what we're fighting in Colorado, essentially. And so, like, this guy, this wolf scenario, his picture with his wolf has been used in the campaign against us in Colorado. So a bad apple, who thought it was doing it for a laugh, who showed the utmost disrespect to animals in multiple ways. Like it wasn't just one infraction. It was like one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. And he is now the poster child of saying, look, this is what this community looks like.
And it's so difficult to actually be able to bring yourself back up when you've been knocked that far down the ladder, because it's that information spreads like wildfire around. Well, it's like anything around the internet. You do something wrong and it's gone forever, and you're always known for it. To actually get the right picture back out there is so difficult.
Oh no, that's what we do every day. And from a Blood Origins perspective is we create content every single day to change the perception of people, the non-hunting majority, that person that was me, back 30 years ago when I was in South Africa, to say, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I never thought hunters were like that, or I never knew hunting did something like that. Like, for instance, we just released our first documentary called Wire and Water officially out into the public space. And one of the things that we're purposely doing is, because we've got social media as a tool, we're purposely putting Wire and Water into a Zimbabwean community. Okay. So Zimbabwe obviously have a lot of people that live on Facebook, and we all have seen sponsored ads on Facebook of the things that come across our feed.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Wine and Water is a sponsored ad in Zimbabwe right now because it's a story of hunting and hunters in Zimbabwe.
Fantastic.
And we're getting phenomenal feedback. Like, it's I really love watching Facebook, and you see a post and you see all these names and you're like, I have no idea who these people are,
Yeah, yeah. That's what you want,
you
though, isn't
know?
it? It just means
And
they're interacting.
yeah, and it's all, wow, this is incredible. Wow, these guys God sent together. We can do great things. Um, Nice documentary. Keep up the good work. Thank you for involving the community from the start. Brought tears to my eyes. Amazing documentary. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's just great, and it's really you've put the nail right where it needs to be, in the right place. Whereas obviously I think a lot of the stuff, well, the UK is a completely different place altogether. If you did a documentary on hunting, it's never going to be shown on for the general public to see, and unless you manage to sneak it in somewhere. But even then, it's just one of those things. As soon as you mention, there was a TV show on the other week, and it had one of the contestants potentially winning the lease for a farm was a gamekeeper, but they wouldn't use the word gamekeeper. He was a something to do with wildlife, and that was all they would put it down as. It was almost like we were ashamed in the UK to mention the word gamekeeper.
Oh, geez.
And you just think that, yeah, it's madness. It really is. And I think the UK, even the hunters, I think there's 8 or however many people that are in the UK, but there is only about 600,000 firearms licenses, which is tiny. So we're such a minority over here that our word, or trying to get anything out, and the few that do, we're still just, yeah, we're not listened to.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. We're trying to create a message that isn't your typical hunting message.
Yeah.
And if you can create that message that isn't your typical hunting message, then the non-hunting majority, again, that's the audience that we're targeting from a Blood Origins perspective, can start interacting with it. So, for instance, this Wire and Water thing, these people that are seeing this documentary, I guarantee you that the vast majority, if not all of them, are non-hunters.
Yep. Yeah. But let's go back to the beginning. How did Blood Origin start? Because what was the reasoning for it? Why did you want to create it?
Well, I have 2 boys. They're 12 and 10 now. They were 5 and 7 at the time. And I think I was just like, I was seeing hunting. I was watching hunting on television. I was starting to reread my grandfather's stories a little bit more. And I was like, man, I've got this opportunity we could do some pretty cool storytelling. And I think at that time, I really maybe in my brain wanted to become like, I don't know, some sort of hunting celebrity, I guess.
Okay.
Some sort of hunting show, be on the Outdoor Channel, Sportsman's Channel, whatnot. But I had no idea. It was almost just this like brain fart, this idea. And I wanted to take my grandfather's stories and explore them more. And so one of the ways that I wanted to do that was, I was like, man, my boys are asking questions like why are we hunting? And I could explain to them biologically why we were hunting, because I had a PhD and I could understand, talk about nest predators and populations and stuff like that. But I couldn't explain my heart to them. And so I was like, all right, let me see if I can find it. Let me go see if I can read up on people about why they hunt, see videos about why they're hunting. There's very, very, very few pieces of content around it. And so I said, well, why don't we just build it? And I wanted to do it very differently. I wanted it to be filmed very differently. I wanted it to film very uncomfortably, so very engaging, like me and you talking right here. It's not a quarter turn interview. It's like,
oh no, it's straight on.
Direct, straight on. I wanted it to be about other people. I didn't want it to be about me. So if you go back, we've done I think we've done 80 Blood Origins episodes now. But if you go back to the first 10, you won't see me at all.
Okay.
You'll just hear my voice. And so when I started going around the hunting circuit, the hunting show circuit, and asking for sponsorships and partnerships and whatnot, nobody knew who I was because nobody had seen me.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
all heard my voice. When they heard my voice, they're like, "Oh, you're that guy." And again, fortuitously, things happen for a reason. Everybody that we approached from a partnership perspective to like ask for money or anything like that, they told us no.
Yep.
And little did I know that it was just like the podcast world. I was one of 10,000 people asking for money.
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
And I had no idea. Like I was completely naive to the whole situation. And so I just kept doing it though. Like that's my personality. I'm a very, very persistent individual. And so I think one of the characteristics that you see of Blood Origins is that we're very persistent and we're very consistent in what we
Yes.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why we have I think we have over 500 podcasts. If you count up the roundups, I think we're at like 100 and something roundups.
Right.
We're at 460 odd episodes. We're at 20 odd short truths. We're just consistent in what we do and how we do it and what we push out.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we just kept going and going and going and going until my wife told me, she was like, "Look, I love your passion for this." And I had a full-time job at the time. I was still a full-time environmental consultant as I was building this thing. So I had 2 jobs for 5 years essentially. And she just said, "Look, I love what you do. I love your passion, but I need my savings account back. So you need to figure out how to pay for this." And luckily we had some very close friends that suggested to us that we needed to convert ourselves into a 501c3. So in the United States, a 501c3 is a charity. It's a non-profit charity. And once we did that, like the first day I announced it on socials that we were a charity, and we did it the right way in that we built the brand, we built the message, we built the integrity. Then we changed ourselves into a charity. Then we asked for money.
Right.
From the public. Versus not being nobody and starting a charity and saying, "Hey."
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
And the first day we announced that we were a 501c3, I think 50 people gave us money.
Right. Wow.
And I was like, wow, okay. We've got something here, I think. So and that was it. Off
fantastic.
To the races.
What a way to do it. That I feel you, because starting off, this podcast is 2 years old now, and it's been like that, and I'm very similar. Just keep plowing on. You have to keep asking questions. You get lots of knockbacks, and you just keep going. And I think that's the way. And I think it's those podcasts and productions are the ones that do shine through, and people can see the passion for them, exactly as you say. But yeah, you've moved into the next level now. You're out there.
Yeah, no, we're definitely on the next level, and lots of hoops and things that you have to jump through now as a charity. And
Of course.
So, but it's all worth it, and we're on a rocket ship right now. And yeah, it's things are really good, and we're telling really good stories, and we're in the middle of every controversy around hunting in the world, I would think.
I was going to say, yeah, if there's a controversy out there, you seem to be right on top of it straight away and getting the information out there.
Well, and that's our bread and butter, right? And we have to consistently continue to do that. And we have not fallen behind the wayside. I have very high standards for myself in terms of what we do and how we do it and how quickly we respond. So luckily, we're going to have some help here shortly. I hired a director of global policy outreach. Who
saw you advertising for that for a while. Yeah.
We hired a girl called Ashley Ellis Smith for that job, and she's amazing. She'll be a new face, a new voice for Blood Origins.
Okay.
So it won't be just the boring, drab Robbie Kroger anymore. Which will add I'm quite excited for it because it's adding diversity to us and adding a different voice, a different cadence. She's the Spitfire. She's as she said in a sort of interview process with me, she was like, the only problem we're going to have is we're going to fight.
Right. Okay. Well, it's good to be honest, isn't it? Straight
Yeah,
away, at least.
and that's the thing you want. You want someone who has an opinion, who stands up for her opinion,
Yes.
and you can have an amicable discussion about the opinion.
Well, I think sometimes it's better to get it all out there straight away, and then you kind of know exactly where you stand rather than the people that don't give you that information, and there's always a tension. You get it out, you lay it on the table, you go, this is my hand, there you go, deal with it. You either like it, you don't like it, you make up and you carry on, and that's just the way it should be. And I think if the hunting world was like that, we'd be in a much better place rather than all this backstabbing and sneaking around the
Jeez.
place. It's just the way that life is, though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But every industry is like that. It's not just hunting. That's the thing. Everyone's like, oh man, the hunting industry is so, like, as you said, a little backstabby. But every community, every lifestyle, every industry is like that.
Yeah, but I think that the UK, we suffer massively with this, and I've mentioned it before. The problem we've got is you've got well, it's probably the same in the States. It's probably the same wherever you go in the world. You've got your rifle shooters that they're out there after their deer. You've got your wildfowlers. You've got your clay guys. You've got your pheasant shooters, and they all, if we could agree, we have an aim, we have a central direction we need to go in, and we all need to work towards that. Unfortunately, there's everybody wants to be captain and is driving this boat in completely different directions, and what you end up doing, as I feel, is we end up with cracks, and the antis, they have the ability to just drive that wedge in, and it doesn't take a lot. And because we've created the opening, it starts to cause problems going forward. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's probably the same.
Yeah, I've got two opinions on that matter. Number one, yes, the antis are incredibly smart, and they will leverage every little chink in our armor to sort of disengage us, break us down, fracture us. We certainly don't help the situation in that we are fractured. I do think, though, based on some things I've seen here in the last 10 months, that if the issue is big enough, that everyone will lay down their weapons essentially and come together.
Okay.
So I think if the issue gets big enough, I think everyone will come together. I do think, though, sometimes we inflate the infighting in hunting a little more than it actually is. And when I say that, inflate it to what everyone outside the circle is seeing looking into the circle.
Okay.
I don't think the non-hunting majority, now again, non-hunting, not the antis, not the small percentage of antis that are this, like us, small percentage, but the general public, if you had to poll them and ask them, is there a, what's the word I'm looking for? Is there division, rife division within the hunting ranks between the different hunters?
Yeah.
I think you'd be surprised at the answer. And I think the answer would be, no, I don't think so. They're all hunters, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree with you. And it was yeah, you're absolutely right. It's one of those things. I spoke about this with a friend the other week, and we were talking about the UK, and you mentioned hunters, and all people, the general public, and he is general public, and he said they only think of fox hunting. They think of guys riding around horses, ripping a fox to bits with dogs. He goes, they don't think of what you do, the deer stalking, the management, the land management, and all the rest of it. All they get their head round is it's been so instilled in them, it's fox hunting as soon as you mention the word hunting.
That's a really cool observation. Maybe that's what we should do. We've never done anything. We've done one story, one Blood Origins episode of a guy in the UK, but we haven't really done anything in the UK yet.
But I think that'd be
got a cool little documentary to go just like, what is hunting?
Yeah.
And even just start in urban frickin' London and ask random people, like, what is hunting to you? And I reckon you're right. I think 8 out of 10 people will go fox hunting.
Yep. Yeah. And my friend is a photographer, and he deals with the general public on a daily basis. And he's been out and he's done photo shoots with me because it's something different. He goes, I love doing photo shoots with you. There's no editing. I've not got to do lots of touching up. But and he talks about it, and he goes, I have to be so careful, obviously being associated with you because I deal with lots of vegetarians, vegans, and all the rest of it. But yeah, that was his comment, that hunting, you mentioned hunting, and then straight away it's the fox hunting. So there you go, new documentary for you. Come to the UK and try that one.
I think that would be cool. I think that'd be cool. We're getting more and more into that bigger documentary space of like just asking people and getting people's opinions and trying to change people's opinions
Yeah.
on what hunting actually, or just bigger hunting topics. And that would be a sweet topic.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think people are starting to look outside the box. This whole idea of wanting to know where your food comes from has really opened people's eyes to actually start exploring the world of where can they get venison from. I know in the States you can't sell venison, and it's one of those things, but in the UK venison is readily available. We have Facebook groups where you can shoot a deer and it's like game for the table, and you can sell the carcass straight in fur because that's allowed. So this morning 2 row went up, somebody's shot 2 deer and they're available 30 quid each, and it's like brilliant. So that's they're 18 kilos by the time you've broken them down, but that's still enough meals for potentially 20-25 meals out of that. And it's so open for people. And I think that's starting to change society in the UK very slowly, and a minority, but things are moving forward. So yeah, it's and I think the whole world over, the UK is different, obviously, to the States. The States hunting is very much it's an ingrained thing. It's part of life over there, I believe. Well, it looks that way. It's probably changing in the cities, but yeah, the UK, we've kind of completely gone the opposite way, and it's actually trying to bring that lifestyle back. You'd have thought it would still be here, but it's not. It really is it's a tricky game to play.
Yeah, no, it is a tricky game, but we have to figure out how we need to speak about it. We need to figure out how we need to engage the people that don't understand it. We have to, we call it fighting fire with fire. We need to be able to like see what the anti-hunters are doing against us and like use their same tactics against them.
Yeah.
Billboards, for example, or advertising, whatnot. We don't advertise at all like a pro-hunting message, because if you think about it, anybody who's in the hunting space that's going to put an advertisement on a billboard is always going to be self-serving in that I'm selling something.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm selling a membership. So, for instance, I'm not getting onto Basque at all, but if Basque was to put up a billboard, Basque is going to be like, they're trying to recruit hunters into their organization with their billboard, right?
Yeah.
Basque would never pay, and maybe they will after hearing me say this, will never pay to put up a billboard in London that just says hunting is human.
No, of course not. And I think that's one, because the backlash they would feel they would get.
But why would they be worried about backlash? They're a hunter-led organization.
But this is the biggest problem. I think all these big organizations will go with the flow because they don't like dealing that. I'd almost say that the people that run them don't like dealing with the backlash they get. So anytime the lead ban, for example, was a classic one over here, all the big organizations just swung in the direction, oh yeah, the lead ban, we'll let that happen. Whereas there were people out there going, well, hang on a minute, we can't just let this happen. We need to stand for our rights. But no, these organizations, and then all of a sudden things change and these organizations swing the other way because, oh, well, look, the population of hunters and shooters are all having a right stand up about this and they're getting traction. We'll swing it back the other way. And I think that's the problem. We don't actually have a body that would stand up and really defend everything properly. That's my feeling, and I think that's where the UK has that's one of the big problems with the divide. You have all these organizations, but none of them will stand up and be the figurehead to drive it forward.
Yeah, look, I get look, I'm probably more versed than most when it comes to politics. And when you get big organizations, you're very much embedded in politics. And politics drives a lot of things, in that you really don't understand when an organization doesn't say something. It's not because they don't want to say something. There may be some politics at play. So I don't want to get into back and forth of what they say and how they say it and why they say it. But to me, we've never as a hunting community decided to be proactive in our messaging.
No.
We're a community that loves to sit in the closet. We've closed the closet door, and that closet door, we like it to stay closed. So every so often, the closet door gets ripped open. We get punched in the nose, and we come screaming, kicking and screaming, yelling, whatnot. And then when everything dies down, we just creep back into the closet and close the door and let us be. And you're right, putting a billboard, like we have a billboard right now in Victoria, Australia, that says hunting is human.
Right.
Halfway around the world, Blood Origins put up a billboard with Field and Game Australia. And that billboard was not meant for hunters. That billboard was meant for the non-hunting majority to go, oh, wow, that's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah. Let's go.
Like, what do you mean? What hunting is human? Oh, it means that, slowly but surely the idea of hunting is being erased from our lifestyles, which is why everyone is here today. Just go back 1 or 2 generations and you'll find a hunter in your family or a hunter around your family that allowed your family to survive. And it's that erosion of values, erosion of traditions, erosion of heritage that comes with it. That hunting is it's inherently who we are. It's how we got to where we are today. And we should be proud of that. And that's okay to be proud of that. And so we put a billboard up that says hunting is human. Full stop. End of story.
No, I absolutely fantastic. And it would be amazing to see that hit the UK. But
you got to convince the advertiser. That's the one problem. Hurdle.
Yeah, 100%. It's possibly it's doable in Scotland. There'd be advertisers that would do it, but again, it's a really tricky situation, especially considering that we're on rocky ground at the moment. We've got obviously a general election coming up, so who knows what we'll get. We have parties that could come in there, and they were potentially the instigators of hunting bans and just trying to destroy all of this, because that's their agenda. I think the UK could be in for a very rocky road, dependent on who wins our next general election in terms of the hunting community.
I'm surprised that in the UK, given the way that it's set up, the coalition government structure, I'm surprised that, and then given the way that Labour has moved away from agriculture and this whole bill, that there hasn't been like this uprising of a new party that's just like, okay, this new party is rural based, agriculture based, hunting, fishing, shooting based. Like in Australia, they got the shooters, fishers, and farmers party or something like that.
Yep. The problem is the number of people that, well, a lot of people are the quiet hunter that hides in the cupboard, as you said. They don't tell people what they do. They go out, they enjoy their sport, their activity, but they won't stand up in public and talk about it. They wouldn't mention it, that they do that sort of thing. There are some that are quite vocal about it and great, but they potentially could be your bad apples, and the way they vocalize it and they bring that information out doesn't do justice or doesn't do the activity particularly good publicity. And then there's others that are just trying, but they have no voice. They're not listened to quite at the moment. They're not in the right place. And I think that's where the UK is. It's almost it's going through that development phase again on where it needs to be and where its position is in terms of hunters, fishers, everything along those lines. And the farmers are certainly stepping up, and they're trying to get themselves back together. But you've got to get hunters and farmers and hunters and fishers all to work in the same line to go forward. And again, at the moment, that isn't happening.
Well, you've got, I hate to use this example, but the fact that Jeremy Clarkson killed a roe deer on Clarkson Farm
fantastic.
was, probably has done more for hunting than he's just like a Joe Rogan, right? It's just like, holy shit, I can't believe he did it.
He's done more for farming, and he's done more for the hunting community with just that, and especially because they didn't air it out. They just put it out there, and he spoke about it and went through the whole process. And you cannot thank him enough, really, because he really has kind of brought it back into the picture that deer species in the UK need to be managed. And it happens.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of him and what he's doing. So, yeah.
But
cool.
he's chalk and
love
cheese,
the show.
You see. Oh, no,
love
totally.
The show. Absolutely love the show.
But again, it's one of those things. Jeremy Clarkson obviously has a past that there's people that love him, and then there's people that don't. And of course, that's one of those great things about it. But he has done absolute wonders for the farming community, and hopefully now the hunting community will get some feedback off that at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but we need more shows like it. That's the thing.
No, of course. And I think that there's, again, that's where we strive from a Blood Origins perspective to go, is that we want to talk to these mainstreamers, we don't want to be in the isolated bubble of the hunting community. You've got people like Jeremy Clarkson who hunt. I was just on a podcast with a WWE superstar. 6.5 million people follow her on Instagram. She's got pink hair, the whole kit and caboodle, and she just became a hunter.
Fantastic.
So there's lots of those, and I think our job, I take it personally as our job, is to introduce ourselves to those individuals, be persistent with them to the point where it's like, yeah, let's have a conversation, whether that's whether that's a podcast or whether that's an interview, whether that's something deeper or richer, I don't know, just something. Or it's us helping them with hunting related narratives. But those are the kinds of people that say, it's okay, I'm gonna talk about hunting.
Yeah, no,
I'm gonna say that I'm a hunter, and they influence their big non-hunting community, just like a Clarkson, just like a Natalie Eva Marie. And then it's okay, who's the next person? Who's the next person that we can introduce to hunting, or is interested, but they've heard about us, that we can reach out and engage, that's in a much bigger community, like a big CrossFit community, or country music community. I don't know.
It's a slow process, and I think it does take time. But as you say, if you can, I've done it with people. I brought people up that have never stalked a deer before. They've come up, they've shot a deer. Then they go back to London and they can sit in a pub, they can drink their beers, they can sit around the table, and it's like, what did you do this weekend? Well, I went and took a deer. And if they have that conversation and they can explain the reasons why they did it and everything behind it, rather than it was just pulling the trigger, you might get one more person understand the whole process of deer stalking, and suddenly you're winning. You just allowing one person to understand it makes a huge difference.
Oh, for sure. And that's exactly our the reason for our existence, really, is to have that conversation with that one person. And in the moment in digital media, you may not convince that one person in that back and forth discussion, like what hunting is and why it should be in their brain set, in their mindset. They should be okay with hunting. But I know that 10,000 people just read my comment, or 100,000 people, depending on how big of an account I'm engaging in. Read my comment and was like, wow, I never knew a hunter could speak like that. I never knew a hunter was that intelligent. I never knew about that statistic or that piece of information. And all of a sudden, we've got all these seeds that have been planted everywhere, but that you have no idea about, right? You have no idea who's read your comment. It'll blow your mind who's actually watching you. They don't engage. They don't do anything. They just sit back and watch.
Yeah, and that's what you want at the end of the day. As long as that information's getting out there and it's in, and you produce it and present it in an educated way that isn't just look at me, then you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, 100%. That's what we do. We love it, and we try and do it as much as we can in very different, as many different forms of content that we can do it in, right? Podcast, feature films, short videos, infographics.
I was going to say, because your website's pretty impressive. It's a very, very smart looking, everything about it. Everything I've seen so far of the Blood Origins sort of overlook, it's very polished, it's very smart, it's very well done. You really hit the nail there on the head.
Well, I appreciate that, man. You know, that we are very purposeful in what we do, and I knew that we had to, everything that we do, we had to do it at the highest quality we possibly could do it at.
Yep.
Because we needed to do that, because that differentiates us from the 10,000 other people that were in the space. And that's 100%. What we started with. And we've just continued along that track, and we'll continue to do it. Like, we just want to be better and better and better at what we do. And that people can see it, they can see the beauty in it, they can see the passion in it, they can see the authenticity in it, which is what we're trying to bring to the table.
So what's let's jump on a bit. What's next on for Blood Origins? Where are you trying to go?
Everything.
What's the
Everything. Like, we just finished a piece in France and Belgium on saving Bambi, so saving roe deer with thermal drones in hay fields. Yep. That was incredible. We're working on a big elephant documentary right now out of Botswana. We filmed that last year. That should be ready in July, which is very timely in the fact that the Botswanan president is offering the German parliament 20,000 elephants, that he's going to send them 20,000 elephants.
Right.
We've got a bunch of work coming out of New Zealand. We've got a big documentary that we're trying to finish out of Spain. We're going into Tanzania to tackle this big elephant controversy in a month and a half's time. So there's just everything is
everywhere.
We're everywhere. We are everywhere.
Oh, fantastic.
If we had to stop today, like if you said, Robbie, you're done, we probably have enough content that will keep rolling out till middle of 2026 right now.
Wow. Okay. That's impressive. Yeah, I think I'm trying to get ahead and getting podcasts lined up, but it's one of those things I don't think people quite realize that, yeah, how much stuff you do in the background. And obviously now this is a full-time job for you.
Full-time, yeah.
I'm still in the situation where you were. I'm running my business and still trying to put content out at the same time. But yeah, it's time consuming and just getting it all processed and getting all the contacts and everybody. But that's impressive that you're that far ahead and you have that much content ready to go. So yeah.
Well, we don't have it ready to go. Let's just say that. Right. We've got it filmed.
It's in the pipeline. Yeah.
It's in the pipeline for sure.
Fantastic. So yeah, I'm not going to hold up any more of your time, I don't think. I think I know you're a busy man, and it is 6 a.m. when we started this podcast for you, and it was just gone 12 for me. So I think we'll keep it short and sweet. We've allowed people to introduce who you are if they don't know for the UK. I'll put some links in so you can actually go and have a look. And if you get a chance, have a listen to some of the podcasts and some of the stuff you've produced. As I say, the memorable one for me was the Australian guy, because that was just like, that so could be brought to Scotland for our red deer issues. Mm-hmm. And I think it once upon a time there was actually an estate up here that used to do small fences, and once the trees got to a certain height, they'd take the fences down and actually allow the deer back in, because obviously they don't cause any problems. Unfortunately now it doesn't work like that. They just fence off huge areas and plant trees in them and keep all the deer out and eradicate. And that's been our biggest problem up here. So yeah, there's some good content there. But anyway, thank you ever so much for your time. And unless there's any questions you've got for me.
No, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I'm honored and humbled. If we do manage to come to the UK, you'll have to take me deer stalking, okay?
No worries. We'll do that. We'll definitely organise that. But yeah, thanks for your time, and we'll catch you again.
You're
Cheers.
welcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed that chat with Robbie from the Blood Origins. If there's anything in there that you want to ask more questions about, feel free to drop us a message. Obviously now you can use that link I talked about that comes up on the descriptions of all the podcasts. It's a bit like a text messaging system. We get to see it. We can't respond to it, but obviously I can read them out and send the message back via the podcast. You've got all our other methods of getting in touch with us, either via social media. You can drop us an email. It's peter@theoutdoorgibbon.com. And we will catch you on the next one.